And we welcome you to the Cubbie Corner here on SouthBendCubs.com. It is back again for the 2022 offseason as we prepare for South Bend Cubs baseball at Four Winds Field. Welcome back, everybody. It's Brendan King with you, broadcaster for the South Bend Cubs, alongside my fellow broadcaster, Max Thoma, your broadcast team for 2022. We are thrilled to be back, and Max, Cubs baseball is going to be here before you know it.
So excited to be back. I mean, you look outside, a little bit of snow out there, but, baseball is coming sooner than later. It sneaks up on you this time of year. We're all looking forward to spring and summer and Cubs baseball back here at Four Winds Field.
See, here's the thing. I'm in Indy. We just got done with the national championship. Haven't had our first big snow here yet. You said you just got back from New York, so that was probably quite chilly out east.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's the wind in New York that can just funnel through narrow streets and just destroy it. There was no snow, but, man, it was cold. But it's nice to be back. There's no snow on the infield right now. You can just take my word for that. So infield's looking good if you want to go shag some ground balls.
Well, as soon as there is snow on the infield, Chris Hagstrom will surely tweet a picture at South Bend at SB Cubs on Twitter. Welcome back to the
like 5 a.m. It's going to be 8 hours before Myrtle Beach is up.
And Myrtle Beach will announce it.
Days. Yes.
Oh man. We're so glad to have you with us on the Cubbie Corner. Coming up, interview number 1 today. Max, you talked along with Max Bain, 2021 South Bend Cubs pitcher. What do you think you took most from that interview?
I mean, he's just such a fun person to talk to, no matter what's happening. But, I mean, if you got to follow him, the most fascinating thing about talking to Max Bain is just how transparent he is about everything. He's not a guy who just talks about the successes. He was the Cubs minor league pitcher of the month in August, but he loves to talk about the negatives. The month before that, in July, he had a really poor month on the mound, and he's very open and clear about it. I mean, right after the season ended, he put together a highlight reel that he posted on social media that was every home run he gave up throughout the 2021 season, which is just not something you really see people do. So he's just so transparent about his thought process, where he is, how he deals with success versus failure. And just, it was his first season, so it was a roller coaster ride for him. A guy who was a D2 product signed off of Twitter. He has a lot of fun stories to tell and just a lot of great insight after his rookie season.
There's one thing I remember about Max. It's that our guy Lance from Marquee Sports Network came to do an interview with Max Bain on one of the games we did together. And it was one of those things where he sat down after BP and you look an hour and a half later, they're still sitting in the first row, a guy that is obviously a great interview. So we'll look forward to that. But a few things to catch you up on before we get to the interview with Max and Max. First of all, South Bend Cubs Reading Club, Swoop and Stew's Reading Club is back again for 2022. Now, Max, a short time to register here. Reading Club presented by Indiana 811, as well as NIPSCO, and teachers and principals have until about February 7th to get registered and their kids ready to go. Yeah,
February 7th until you get registered. Very excited. Participating schools, they scheduled the delivery is just 2 weeks later on February 21st. Certainly a fun thing. The dynamic duo of us in the booth, the dynamic duo teaching kids, helping them how to learn and read with Stu and Swoop. Always nice to see them helping the local community.
One more thing to get to, and this is very important. So stay tuned for an important Chris Hagstrom hair update. Yes,
I think that might be more important. I think it just became more important as we learned about that before we started recording this.
I think so. Polar Plunge is back again at Four Winds Field, February 26th, the 6th annual Polar Plunge already, of course, benefiting Special Olympics Indiana in St. Joe County. Now, Max, I've been a part of multiple polar plunges. I was a plunger in college at Butler, which was very cold in January in Indianapolis. But what's cool is that the money raised for Special Olympics Indiana in St. Joe County, the first goal for the South Bend Cubs, $500. That was eclipsed. Now it's at $1,200. That has been reached. But Max, a very special thing will happen as soon as the South Bend Cubs hit $2,000.
Yeah, it's nice to already I've hit a couple goals, but that big number now is 2,000, and it's even bigger because obviously that's a lot of money. In the last 6 years, almost $100,000 has been raised by the Polar Plunge for the Special Olympics. But if we hit 2K, Chris Hagstrom, our boss, will be dyeing his hair platinum blonde. We don't know for how long. I don't know what the duration of that.
Yes,
I'm hoping it's got to be there for opening day. That's for sure. But maybe the whole season. If he goes blonde and we win the title, I don't think he can ever go back to his normal hair color again.
No, that's one of those things he has to keep it for the rest of his life. But, he'd probably just have to pre-apologize to his family at future gatherings. But I'm sure he'd end up looking pretty sharp with it.
Hey, Chris looks good and everything. If I went blonde and we started rolling, you got to keep it going.
You got to keep it going. Cubbie Corner, Brendan King, Max Thoma. So glad to have you with us. Max, coming up, it's your interview with Max Bain. What do you look forward to most in talking with Max?
I mean, like I said, you go into these things with a list of questions, and when you talk to Max, you almost never even look at your piece of paper because the conversation just flows so naturally. Like you said, that moment with Lance when he came to Four Winds Field actually came up in our interview because they must have been sitting for like an hour and a half. I think he was only recording for like 30 minutes, and that's just so standard when you're talking to Max. He's such a fun guy. He made his debut. His debut was pretty notable. He came out, he walked the first guy. The second guy was Nick Lofton, a first-round pick, who we actually just interviewed on his podcast, the Bain Campaign, which is a great trio of guys hosting that. You can get that wherever you find your podcast. New episode comes out every Monday. In fact, yesterday, he actually just had Ryan Jensen on, who spent obviously most of last season with the South Bend Cubs. So the podcast has been great. I was really looking forward to talk to him about that because, he can go out there, pitch every 5 days and look great on the mound. But for him to come into our neck of the woods with, the broadcasting and the podcast, and he does just as well as his job as we would. It's almost annoying how good he is at being, a media personality and a brand, because then he can go do it on the field, which obviously, I mean, you and me can't. I haven't been given the shot. I think if you threw me out there, I could toss an inning.
Well, I think it's pretty much to be determined what would happen if you put me on the mound at Four Winds Field, but that's okay. Enjoy the interview. It's our very own Max Thoma with 2021 South Bend Cubs pitcher Max Bain on the Cubbie Corner.
Okay, South Bend Cubs broadcaster. I'm Max Thoma, joined by South Bend Cub for all of 2021 in his rookie season, Max Bain. Max, how you doing today?
I am great, Max. I appreciate you guys having me on. This is a fun opportunity, so thank you. You guys have done nothing but help me promote my own podcast, so I am here. I'm just glad to be here, man. This is fun.
First interview of the offseason. Figured we'd go a little Max on Max action with Thoma and Bain. And obviously you're hosting the Bain Campaign podcast. I know we've been plugging it. How did that come to fruition? First off, just name, how'd you get the partners with Chris and Brian? How'd you get the sponsor with Obvious Shirts? Can you just kind of take us through exactly how all that went down?
Yeah. So towards the end of the year, I was kind of struggling in terms of like content ideas because I had been running the vlog in Arizona, but I knew I was moving home to Michigan. And the last thing I wanted to do is produce an entire vlog about myself because I wouldn't feel comfortable producing that, nor do I think that people would be super interested in that. I think it's more about the guys that I train and kind of promoting the community that I'm in. So I was struggling with like content ideas. And then Brian had actually hit me up on Twitter. He DM'd me, said, hey, like if you're struggling for content ideas, which again, I was, he said, I've got some stuff for you. I think you might be interested to hear it. And, he had pitched this idea where we were going to do an episode about every start, bring guys in throughout that were pivotal points throughout the year. And it was going to be like this, 20, however many appearances I had, right? I think it was 22 games started, 23 appearances. And that kind of evolved as we kind of talked about it. Because again, like I said, I didn't want it to be all about me. This should not be about every outing that I had. It should be about the guys who were influential on my year or the guys who have been influential in my career. And that kind of, again, it kind of evolved. And then we were in Beloit that second to last week of the season. And my now co-host, Chris McLean, he lives in Milwaukee, so he brought the family out, made a trip, and I was talking to him. I think Todd actually tweeted out the picture earlier, maybe back in December. But there's a picture of me talking to him up against the fence or the new netting in Beloit, excuse me. Yeah. And that's where he kind of came up with the idea, something similar to what Brian had pitched, but again, more inclusive. And then I kind of got the three of us in a DM and said, this is what I want to do. This is how I want to do it. And I want to prioritize X, Y, and Z, and we move forward. We move forward, and as far as the name goes, I give credit to Brian because that was actually our first name for the podcast, and it didn't sit right with me for about 24 hours. But then after that, it really kind of grew on me, and I love where we're at right now. I think it's grown more than we could have imagined, and I just hope that the content is fresh and it's different every week.
Yeah, I mean, it's a ton of fun to listen to. If you haven't listened to it, it's Chris from, Turn Up Pair Baseball podcast. It's Brian from Bleacher Nation. And then you, of course, Max Bain. It's a terrific trio. How did you guys first figure out, who you wanted to have on? I know you've had on some former South Bend Cubs. You've had on guys like Bryce Windham. You've had on, big league Cubs like Miguel Hermosillo. And then, yesterday I feel like was a fun one yesterday being Monday. I'm not sure exactly when we're going to post this video, but the most recent episode with Quad City River Bandits, Nick Lofton and Michael Massey, because you interviewed two guys you faced all year, and you interviewed Nick Lofton, who, you know, had a relatively notable pro debut against you in your pro debut, and then had a pretty good solid season against you as well as an opponent.
Yeah. You know, I think at the beginning when I laid out a guest list, I wanted to include guys, like I said, who were influential on that first season. And that's kind of where it started. Now it has evolved. You know, we had, like you said, we had Mike Hermosillo on, we had Rob Hill on, we had some different in terms of the roles that they played in 2021. And I think that that's going to continue to grow. You know, there are more guests coming up that may not have been as influential on my personal 2021 season, like a Bryce or a Joe Nahas or, you know, even Nick Lofton and Mike Massey. So, you know, it started with getting guys who were influential on my first year. And we wanted to prioritize the mental health side of things in terms of the content that we were bringing out. You know, I didn't want it to be just like, you know, any other podcast where we bring guys on to tell their story and that's it. You know, I want to talk, you know, I know these guys on a personal level and I want to talk about certain things that happened that I saw, or if I see a certain stretch in time statistically that stands out, good or bad, how do we build on that? Or how do we come back from a, you know, negative stretch of play? So, you know, it's been really fun, man. And like I said, I'm really happy with where we're at and the content that we're producing.
And so much of that stuff that you just brought up is what I want to get into. You know, so many things you hear throughout, you know, podcasts and stuff is how people are doing, but you don't hear about the mental, you know, health side of it, you know, the thought processes of what's going into, you know, every at bat, every pitch, you know, every single game, every off day. And that's so much about what, you know, what you and Lofton and Massey were talking about. And it's kind of, you know, what I would say is the brand that you've kind of created for yourself. That, you know, just total transparency. There was the video you posted on Twitter at the end of the season where you posted, I think it was just straight up every home run you allowed throughout the year.
Yeah.
Can you address how, you know, why is it so important to talk about the successes, the failures, and, you know, the mental health aspect of the game as well?
So, excuse me. When I started posting stuff on Instagram or posting stuff on Twitter, really any social media platform, I kind of started to get this opinion that, in seeing, you know, what my, you know, friends or, you know, other guys that I've played against maybe don't follow, but I see what they post and I see the expectation or the perception that they build. And a lot of times I think people are, I don't want to say people, but I think there are guys who are, susceptible to only posting the good stuff, and they want to build this best image of them possible, which I think is great, right? You want to post the success that you're having and you want to get love for that. Like, that's totally cool. That is your wave. Stay on it. But I think it sets an unrealistic expectation for those who are just like seeing the good versus the day-to-day stuff. You know, I've had friends before that, you know, if they post videos, it looks like they're hitting 600 on the year with 30 jacks, and you go look at their line and they're hitting 200 with a 600 OPS. And that's not how I want to advertise myself. And that's my personal choice. Again, you know, the guys that select post whatever, only the good stuff, by all means, more power to you, go for it. That's just not really how I wanted to build mine, because I think that the good and bad makes us human. And I think that's a really important part of the game that often gets overlooked, especially at the minor league level. You know, Aiden McIntyre, who was one of our first two guests on the Bain campaign, he's with the Oakland A's. And I go back to this a lot, really in interviews, still on the Bain campaign or any other podcast. But, you know, he said, you know, the average fan, they'll walk in and, you know, they might see a third baseman make two bad throws and they're talking crap from the stands. And they don't know, like, up until this upcoming year, they don't know whether they're having to sleep on a kitchen floor because that's the best way to, you know, save money on rent so that you can actually put some money in your pocket. You don't know what's going on outside of the field that leads you to see the people on the field and the product on the field. And that's kind of what I want to highlight, that nobody is perfect. And, you know, the guys who are going to post one pitch on Instagram saying, look how good this looks. You're not seeing the 30 bad ones that it took to get to that one good one. Or, you know, even, there's going to be, if there's 100 of them, you might see 65 good ones and 35 bad ones. That's just the nature of the beast. And that's, I want people to see that I'm human in all of this. And I've really enjoyed the transparency and authenticity that I bring to my social media platforms, really in any sort of content.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really refreshing take. It makes me almost want to think about, posting announcer mess ups. The first game I did this year, MLB Pipeline actually posted a video of me announcing something just because it was Brandon Davis's first home run of the year. And I was like, wow, that first home run call of the year is not the best home run call of the year. And my friend was like, oh, wow, the mic kind of cut out there for a second. It sounded awkward. I'm like, no mic issues. That was just me. But kind of a similar funny thing. And, I think everybody can kind of relate to, dealing with struggles and successes, and, how you deal with that. But when you're a pitcher, as opposed to a hitter who, those guys you've been talking to, they have one bad day, they can go out the next day, pick up one hit, maybe even two hits. And all of a sudden, who cares that they were 0 for 4 yesterday? Now, all of a sudden they got a little streak going, average is back to where it should be, all that kind of, stuff. But you have, if you go out there on a Tuesday or Wednesday and don't perform your best, you're not seeing that team again. And all of a sudden you're waiting a week, you're watching 4 games from the dugout. Whether you pitched well the outing before or poorly the outing before, how do you deal with that time when you're just, you're sitting there and the hitters can do everything every day, but you don't have that kind of, reps game in and game out, you could say?
Sure. It's a good question too. I think the time off builds in an opportunity to win a day that you control. Right. We talked about right before we jumped on, we talked about how Nick Lofton had said, every game is like a game of poker. You can do everything right, but it doesn't guarantee that you're going to win.
I'm getting a spam risk
those
call
4
from Elgin, Illinois right now. Sorry.
Brutal.
I'll keep that in. I'm not cutting that out. Don't worry. Sorry to interrupt.
Those 5 days or 6 days in between, those are all days within your control. Right. So you can go crush the weight room. You can crush your nutrition. You can crush your sleep. You can crush your throwing. And that kind of builds you an opportunity to build off of that going into the next outing, regardless of if the good one or if the last one was good or bad. So, you brought up, throwing poorly on Tuesday. And in this past year's minor league schedule, that actually brought a unique opportunity because the way that the schedule was laid out, it was 6 game sets, Tuesday to Sunday. And if you took the ball, I guess with our organization, if you took the ball on Tuesday, you were going to get it again on Sunday. And it was kind of funny because I think the first 2 times I had the Tuesday-Sunday split, I didn't make it out of the first inning on Tuesday.
Support Tuesday was a good Sunday both times, I think.
Yeah. So it was like those kind of brought unique opportunities to where it was like, okay, the team got me the first time, right? Alabama gets Georgia the first time, but Georgia's going to get Alabama the second time. And that's kind of how it played out for me too. And, those are experiences that are necessary to have when you talk about overall minor league development.
My Georgia-Bama reference before a question in about, a handful of minutes from now is going to look a lot less convenient now because you already brought up the Georgia-Bama thing. I had a great little segue into a question.
I killed it. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're all good. No worries. But, if we get into, say the ups and downs of the season, if we talk about, last year, your rookie season in 2021, first off, the debut, what are the emotions like going into a debut? I believe you pitched game 3 of the season. What's that like? Just the emotions. I know your parents were on hand. They live not too far away in Michigan. What was it like just that day, but especially going out, grabbing that ball for the first time, toeing the rubber for the first time in Four Winds Field? What were those emotions like?
I think there was a lot of buildup. Right. If you follow my story, there's a lot of buildup from September of 2019. And that all kind of comes all up at that fills you up all at once. So there's a lot of emotions and you can't really describe it because you're finally getting this chance to play professional baseball at a very high level. Now I will say outside things like taking care of tickets, making sure accommodations are set, all that stuff, that adds an outside stress. That's impossible to ignore. But I think I've told this story before too, but something that kind of really helped me settle in. And again, we brought up right before the podcast, I think you referenced it in the question, how Nick had a pretty successful debut, right? And that was Nick Lofton's first game too. So I come out and I have a 5-pitch walk, right? I think I go 3-0, strike 1, walk.
And we're talking batter too is Nick Lofton. We're talking about a first round pick from Baylor, right? I mean,
yeah. Right. And again, like this is game 3 of the series and Nick hasn't played yet. So I'm looking at the roster and I'm like, okay, first round pick, guy went to big league camp. He hasn't played the first 2 games.
Very eager to grab a bat and, probably not taking a walk that first AB.
Yeah. So, anyway, we go 0-2 count, and I talked to George Thanopoulos, who is our R&D, and I was like, Lofton's hot zone's very clearly up and in, and I got him 0-2, and I was like, you know what? He hasn't seen my 97, so like we're gonna just put it up and in, and he hits a home run, and that's not what it did it for me. That's not what settled me in. What settled me in is that if you go to Four Winds Field, it's very unique in that they have that big giant scoreboard right behind the plate.
Yeah.
And right under it, they keep the pitcher's name and the ERA. And I hadn't logged it out yet.
Can see
so
where that's going.
The score is 2-0, and I'm looking at the scoreboard and it still says pitcher Bain ERA 0. And it was kind of like a little like everything's gonna be okay. Like you're not like it's not gonna completely, wreck your season or wreck your outing that just happened. Everything's gonna be okay. So it like that kind of helped settle me in, and I don't think I gave up a hit for the rest of the outing. Command was a little bit shaky, but overall, all in all, I think it was a pretty darn good debut, man.
Is there when you start that year, is there a chip on your shoulder at all? I mean, you look around the field, that first series, you got guys like Asa Lacy, you got guys like Nick Lofton, you got guys like Ryan Jensen, 2 guys on Quad Cities, 1 guy in the Cubs there, but like 3 first-round picks. One of the more fascinating things about minor league baseball is you guys all have the same goal of making to the big leagues, but you look at a clubhouse and there's people from just infinite different backgrounds. There's people from the first round, there's people from the 40, odd round of the draft. Is there a chip on your shoulder when you're watching guys like Asa Lacy pitch in that opening season? You're facing guys like Nick Lofton, you're seeing a Ryan Jensen pitch. Does that, make you, a D2 guy from Twitter, does that make you that much more motivated to go out and have a quality outing?
I think there's a certain element that I want to prove myself. But again, I don't think that we would all be wearing the same jersey if we all didn't deserve to be there.
Oh, absolutely.
But if you, and I'm not saying that's how you phrase the question. I'm just saying like there's, obviously I want to prove myself, but obviously like I'm wearing the same uniform as the rest of my teammates and I belong there. And it did take a little while for that to set in. But you brought up watching Asa Lacy, and I think he threw him especially, like if we want to single him out, he probably threw the 3 most dominant innings of baseball I've ever seen to start that game. So when you're watching him, it's like, no, like it's not like envious that he's a first round pick. It's like, wow, look at this. Look at what this guy can do. That's sick. Because I think he had like 8 strikeouts in the first 9 hitters, and it was
there was not a lot of contact. He started walking a lot of guys too.
He did. He did kind of hand us the game in the 4th inning, but those first 3 innings were
it was dominant.
Wow. Yes. Yeah. So there's a certain element like I want to prove myself, and these guys remember who I am. And I think I did prove that, right? If you go listen to that Massey Lofton interview, they very well knew who I was the second time that we faced them. So anything that I felt like I needed to prove, I think I did.
So I marked down a couple stretches of your season that I want to talk about. I think there's 3 in particular. The first is you had to start on June 11th, first Wisconsin, struck out 10 guys. First Cubs pitcher to register double-digit Ks in the season did it before Casey did it. I think the next month. Oh, cool. But it was a stretch of 3 straight starts where you went at least 5 innings. Collectively, I think you allowed 4 earned runs over that stretch and struck out 24 guys. It seems like, when you look at your season, those 3 games were the first stretch where it was like, wow, he's really figured something out. Did you feel that at all? Was there a point in the season, and was that it? Where you felt like you've kind of settled in and you can handle this and you're totally, at a level where you can handle it?
Yeah. So that Wisconsin game kind of brought an interesting opportunity. That was really the first time that I had really depended on my changeup as a weapon. And that pitch really took 12 to 14 months to really, really develop into something that I could use in game. And I referenced that game specifically because they had 2 right-handed hitters in their lineup, 3 left-handed hitters, and 4 switch hitters. And for me, that means 7 left-handed hitters and 2 right-handed hitters. So it was just something where, and I had told Peyton Remy this before he had gotten called up to Tennessee, that there was going to be a game where I was just going to throw 25, 30 changeups and we're going to see what happens. And that was really it, man. That was the game. And I think it was a great opportunity because typically when you're throwing changeups, you're afraid to miss arm side. Like that's kind of your fear. You're afraid to let it run too far in and get a hitter. That's probably your most common miss. So to have that opportunity with so many lefties in the lineup, that was kind of I've been calling it the coming out party for the changeup. And that really dictated a lot of success, going forward throughout the rest of the summer, minus July. But that really helped me. That really helped me quite a bit throughout the year. And, I think just proving to myself that I could get results was a huge step forward.
And you talked about something I want to talk about later, but we can just talk about it now, which is, how do you add a pitch? How do you go about, finding a new grip, finding a new pitch, and really just refining that and then using it? How long is it until you actually use it in the game? And how long is it until you actually have confidence in that pitch? And do you not use it until you have confidence? Like, how does it work? I remember talking to you before the season started. We went through all of your pitches, and you said, hey, we might see a slider today. We might not see a slider today. I've been working on the slider. It's obviously a huge pitch for you this year, slider and the changeup, development of both. But can you talk us through the process of, how do you add that pitch? How do you add any pitch?
It's a lot of trial and error, if I'm being genuinely honest. And, this year brought the addition of 2 pitches midseason, which is why I'm so optimistic about 22, because we don't have to go through that process this upcoming year. But to put a timeline on it is probably unfair because it's very individual of a pitch, right? The slider is something that I started working on week 2. And I think really in August, that was something that I depended on as a pretty consistent weapon. Or I should say the back half of August. Sorry. So you're looking at May, June, July, half of May, half of August, 3 months. 3 months that took to where it was really a weapon. But as I referenced with that changeup before, and something that's so intent based and so fine, that's something that took me like 12 to 14 months, excuse me. I kind of have an unorthodox grip. I've talked about it before, but I'm wedging that between my middle finger and my ring finger. And I'm like, it's basically one step over from a splitter. So your traditional splitters here, your Vulcan change is going to be like right in here. And that's a really unorthodox grip. And that's really hard to like kind of repeat the release of it. Thank God for 2020 at home, because I threw a lot of those like 46 feet. So to have that in 2021 and have that extra 12 months to develop it, that was something that took a little bit longer, but I think the results we're really optimistic for year 1.
So when we talk about, the ups and downs of a season, for you, obviously, what we're mainly talking about is July versus August. There's a stark contrast.
Absolutely.
In July, ERA was just a little over 11. You matched that in August after you hit the development list, and then you come off at July sub 1 WHIP. You had a 172 batting average against. The ERA was sub 3. What was the catalyst for such a stark change between July and August? And 2, this is where I was going to go with it. Did Georgia beating Bama? Did August feel that much better because it came right after July? Georgia had to feel so much better after just losing.
Yes.
Not to compare you to Georgia.
Yeah. No. Well, I'll be okay getting compared to Georgia because they're.
You're on top.
So yes, 100%. So 2 things. 1, I remember. So after that Cedar Rapids start, where we were at home, and I think I gave up like 4 in 3 innings, but it was a hard start to get through, and I was finally starting to see we were finally starting to turn things over, and then Camargo hit that home run off me to center field to end right before my 3rd inning. I remember going up to my dad after that, and I was like at some point this is going to have to regress to the mean, because at that point I'm 3 or 4 poor starts in a row, and this is just getting tiring, right? You're just going out, you're winning in between your outings, right? You're doing everything to control what you can control between your outings, and it's not working out on start day, right? And that's a really frustrating time to be in. So I just remember going up to him and just being kind of joking, this has got to regress to the mean at some point. This cannot be the new norm. I can't do this all the time. So that was probably the worst stretch of baseball I've ever played, speaking strictly results. We kind of started to see things turn in that Wisconsin, when we were at Wisconsin. And I don't think the box score would show that to you. But if you look at innings 1 through 4 versus 5 through 6, or 5 and 6, you see 2 very different outings, right? So 1 through 4, I absolutely crushed it. And again, the opportunity to throw against so many lefties kind of forced that changeup usage. And I crushed it for basically almost strictly fastball changeup for 4 innings. And as we started to get to that third time through the lineup, or, back half of the second time through into the third time, that's when things started to go a little bit downhill. But right after that, I was put on the development list. I got 10 days to kind of put that outing behind me, put July behind me, and really just kind of, again, control what I can control on a daily basis and kind of reset heading into those last 6-7 weeks of the season. And I think that brought me a lot of time. Again, like I said, just leave that stuff all behind. I don't have to we're not compounding this into new outings. And August was a really fun month. It was a really fun time to kind of celebrate or enjoy the success that I was having. And if it weren't for freaking Nick Lofton, man, he got me in my debut, and he's responsible for like 4 of the 7 runs I gave up in August off of one swing. So thanks, Nick. I appreciate that if you're listening. But yeah, man, August was a good time.
He had that effect on a lot of people. It's something we talked on, before I started hitting record was, you just said strictly results speaking, you weren't getting it done, for part of that time. What is it like to deal with, with such an outcome driven sport? At the end of your season, you are defined by your numbers. How many guys did you strike out per 9 innings? What was your batting average against? What was your OPS against? OPS against? How did lefties do against you? It's such numbers oriented, numbers driven. Are there moments where you feel like you're executing everything you need to be, but either you're getting unlucky, there's bloopers, there's errors, or sometimes, hey, you just got to tip your hat. Guys are hitting good pitches. We know there was a lot of guys, especially on that Quad Cities teams, who, it didn't really matter where you pitched it. They could hit anything, anywhere. What is it like to deal with those moments where you are executing, but it's still not going your way?
It's tough. It leaves you questioning what you're doing. Right. When the results aren't where you want them to be, it makes you question your process. And that's something you kind of have to stay away from. If you're a firm believer in your process, even if the results aren't where they need to be right now, over time, it's going to, again, there's going to be a mean, and everything's going to regress to that mean. Whether it's good, whether it's bad, it's all going to kind of come back to the average. And like I said, I'm a firm believer in my process. And I think that showed in terms of me sticking with it through the month of August, first the month of July. So the outcome-based stuff does kind of suck in terms of like, it stinks in terms of like a personal, when people aren't there and they evaluate how you're doing, that does stink because they don't see the full picture. They don't see the full scope of what's actually happening. But it kind of reinforces that you can't get caught up in outsiders' opinions because they're, like I said, they're not there.
So we reached the end of August. Talk to me about your named Cubs minor league pitcher of the month. What is that moment like? How do you hear that? How do they let you know that? And just how rewarding was that feeling, especially so close to the end of the season like that? I'm sure you found out the last homestand, right? You probably found out that first week of September.
So I found out in the dugouts. Michael Ryan came. Excuse me, did not call him Mike. Michael Ryan came and shook my hand, and he goes, "You're going to see something later today that you were named pitcher of the month." And I was like, all right, cool. That's awesome. But like in my head, I'm thinking like, it's a little bit different if I do it, right? You see Hers do it, who's a high school high draft pick. You see Jensen do it, who's a first round pick. Leaper does it. And, I know he went undrafted, but I think have there been even 20 rounds in that draft, he's probably a 5 to 15 round selection, or a 6 to 15 round selection, excuse me. But you talk about the guy, like you said, I'm the Twitter guy, right? For me to be the best pitcher in the organization for a month, that's a little bit different. And that's not lost on me. That's part of me enjoying the success and maintaining perspective in the whole thing. So for me to win that award was cool. And that's not near everything I wanted to accomplish. Don't get me wrong, but it is a little bit. It is a little bit of a moment where I can take that step back and be like, wow, I've really made some strides in terms of as a player. Like I've really made some strides, and I'm heading the right direction. So to finish the season on a high note like that, going into 22, where I'm really optimistic going into this year. That was really, really cool. A really cool moment to just kind of enjoy.
So looking back, what did you learn about yourself in year one?
I learned that I need to be, I am very hard on myself. And that is solely because, man, I'm really hard on myself because I want to be perfect. And I think what I learned in year one is, man, I learned so much. One, I learned how to pitch again, not just throw as hard as I possibly can. That was a big focus on the 18 months that I wasn't in Mesa. That was a big focus because that was what was going to get me signed and ultimately leave the best impression when I first showed up. So I learned to pitch again, which was a big part of it. But I think I learned how to maintain perspective in the whole thing. And that goes back to how I started this answer with me being very hard on myself and wanting to be perfect. When I'm hard on myself, that's a very results-driven emotion. But I think by the end of the year, it was more so, and shout out to Brian King, if he's listening, everything is what it's going to be. Like everything is just going to be what it is. And everything's a result of the process that you put in. So I think I just learned to maintain perspective and really embrace what I can control and letting that be the most important thing to me rather than just the results.
So this year, the last thing I want to address about this previous season is, this year you shared a clubhouse with, highly touted guys like we talked about Jensen, Hers, Wicks. You shared a clubhouse with, guys with great minds like a Hunter Biggie, guys with great just raw stuff, who maybe it's not as finely, tuned like a Nunez, verbal leaders. I think the least shocking thing I've heard in your podcast so far is that, those guys were saying that Wenson is talkative.
Yes.
I think if you've ever met Harrison Wenson, he's certainly a chatterbox back there. Him talking, in between pitches behind the plate was not a shock. But talk about the impact the people and the relationships you built in 2021 have had on you, that season and more importantly going forward into the future.
Those guys got me through the year, man. Every single one of them, to a certain extent, got me through the year because there's no way, I don't care who you are, what level you're at. There's no way you're making it through an entire season sane without the people around you in the clubhouse. That is very legitimately your summer family. I was fortunate enough. I've grown really close with a few of the guys. We talked about Harris. I got very close with Joe Nahas and Burl Caraway, and I've just been really fortunate to have this group of guys. I think the Cubs have done a really good job at bringing in good people. And that, I think that means so much more than what could be quantified. So those guys, they mean a lot to me, and I'm still very close with all of them throughout the offseason too. So, yeah, man, without those guys, I'm not getting through the year sane. I can promise you that.
So all of us who, fans, other players, coaches, broadcasters, anybody who watched last season, they watched you in 2021. What are you most looking forward to showcasing to show us that you've been working on for 2022?
I want to showcase better consistency. I guess that's the best way to put it. We talked about how I'm not going to have to go through the process of learning 2 new pitches, right? I'm going to come into the season with them. And I think that's going to play a big role in what I want to achieve, but I want to be significantly more consistent. I don't want it to be something where we're looking back in December of 22 going, oh, look at your July versus August. That's something I want to avoid that this year. I want to be more of a known quantity when I take the mound. And because that's ultimately, like, if you're dependable, like that is, I think that's a very important quality to have as you progress through the ranks. So I want to be who I was in August, and I want to be that guy every time I take the mound. That's what I want, because anybody who comes and watches me, they can count on the fact that I've controlled what I needed to in between every start, and I've done it to a T, and I've been diligent and detailed in doing so. I want the results to follow, and that's not something I can control, but I still want that. And I can promise you that I'm going to be consistent. That's all I can say.
Well, we're looking forward to that consistency, I'm sure. And you
Appreciate it.
Started towards that, I'm sure, yesterday, on Monday, we'll call it.
Yeah.
First bullpen of the year. How did
Yeah.
you feel to get back on the mound and throwing?
Really good, man. Really good. And that was really encouraging too, because, if you watch that video, I am nowhere near max intent. That's probably somewhere in the 70 to 80% range. And to be 91, 94, that's pretty cool. That's a testament to the work that I've put in this winter. So shout out to the high school catcher that came out and caught me. I know that might not have been his most comfortable day, but he grinded through that, and I appreciated it. But yeah, it felt good to be back on the mound. Felt good to spin the off-speed stuff again. And again, it's not perfect, right? You're going to see some that are in the dirt. You're going to see some that are balls, and you see a curveball I leave high, like that's part of it. So it felt really good to be back on the mound again, man. It was a good time.
Does the slider feel extra special? It looks extra special when you got a high school catcher catching it back there.
It
looked like you fooled him a couple times.
I have a better feel for it. Like, obviously over time you're going to get a better feel, but I have an especially good feel for it relative to kind of where I thought it was going to be when I first picked it back up this winter. So, yeah, man, I'm excited for that.
So a couple of weeks into the new year, curious, pro athletes, do you guys have New Year's resolutions? And if you do, are there any you'd like to share? Being more timely and easy here. Us common folk would like to hit the gym a few more times, maybe get out of bed in the morning.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if you have any New Year's resolutions.
You asked that question, and I'm stuck on the build. I'm not interested in answering that at this time. That's the only thing I can think of now. I don't have any that stick out.
Yeah, you can't ask Belichick that, but
when you spend so much time in a locker room with Jensen, it's impossible to not want to get better at cooking. So I would enjoy doing a little bit more of that this year. So maybe we can say that I prioritize cooking and grilling more often, and making more professional meals. But I wouldn't say I have a New Year's resolution that's.
I'm hoping Jensen hears this and holds you to that, because I've seen some videos and some end results of his cooking, and it's hard to meet that level. I must say.
Oh, we're going to talk about it Thursday night, because he's the next guest on the Bain campaign too.
There's a nice plug. Looking forward to hear that. And by the way, you can hear the Bain campaign wherever you get your podcasts. You can go check it out. I do want to discuss a funny little tidbit you had, which was you said you tried to get into Wrigley Field. You tried to pull the Cubs player card, and it didn't work.
Yes.
Can you take me through that story? I actually remember during the pandemic 2 years ago, I interviewed Levi Jordan, who said he had never been to Wrigley Field, and his first time there, I think, was in the middle of winter. Might have been Cubs convention, and he somehow convinced someone to let him in.
No kidding.
But he saw the field for the first time, and I believe it was snow-covered seats, snow-covered. Yeah. So, first off, have you been to Wrigley before? Have you gotten that chance? And two, just take me through that. Okay.
Yeah. So I've been twice. And it's different. It's outstanding, man. I love Wrigley Field. But my girlfriend and I were down there for a mini vacation, and before we headed to a wedding for Chicago Cub Ben Hecht. And they have this winter, the best way I can categorize it is this winter wonderland thing set up, where they've got these little tents set up. They got an ice rink, all this stuff. And I see these guys wearing Cubs ballpark staff jackets. And I looked at Madison, and I was like, yeah, I got to pull the card. I got to try, because they're going to, if you don't ask, it's a no. And I went out to the guys hey, man, look, I'm a minor leaguer with the system. I'm with my girlfriend. I'm hoping that maybe by any chance, can you please let us in the park just for 10 minutes? And he kind of looked at me. He's like, no. I was like, all right, there's going to be no budging on that one. Awesome. So I questioned whether he actually believed that I was with the system, which is perfectly reasonable, may I add. But yeah, long story short, big fat no.
So the player card definitely works better than me pulling up a video of a highlight of one of you guys and then being like, oh my God, is that you? And it's like, no, but do you hear the guy describing what he's doing? That's me. Come on, let me grab some Ivy and hit the road.
Oh my gosh.
So I did actually reach out to your co-hosts. I wanted to see if there's anything that they really wanted me to ask you.
Oh boy.
Funny, interesting, or otherwise. And we've actually touched on a decent amount of those subjects, but I wanted to get this question from Chris in. I actually wrote it down. So on your podcast, when you were talking about Ken Rosenthal and MLB Network, and you said, quote, being anywhere 12 years can be a long time. So he wanted me to ask you, how did your girlfriend Madison feel about that statement?
Oh, boy. I think I got lucky because, so she started it's today Tuesday. So we recorded that intro on Sunday, and she started her master's yesterday. that winter semester started, whatever. But she was busy filling out some like pre-class work for that, and she didn't hear it. So maybe now that we've brought it up for a second time on air, that she will. So I might have to get back to you later on that.
Perfect.
I can't imagine it's going to be good though.
I can't imagine so. But I'm looking forward to the response. I
said,
that for sure.
I think the quote directly was 12 years is a long time to be with someone. Just like I could have said a business, a team, organization. I could have said anything, and I went with someone. That's what I chose to do.
Yeah,
so
I mean, there's always you can always edit things out in post too. You know, if you really don't want it in there.
Yeah, no, I it is what it is at this point, so it's fine.
You set the bar very high for these interviews, by the way. With you top me with the microphone, pop filter setup. It's nice to interview a podcaster who's got everything going, who's in a much better lit room than I am. I look like I'm in a cave with holiday lights.
It's funny, man, because every time I go back and listen to our podcast, and granted, I've had some mic issues throughout the production of the first season, but every time I go back and listen and I have this thing going, I am so thankful I do. Like, just relative to, like, sometimes you hear podcasts and guys sound like they're calling in off their phone or off a flip phone for that matter. Like, I don't want that to be the production quality. And every time I go back and listen to it, I'm so thankful I spent $60 on this thing.
So funny because you brought it up like that. I don't know if you guys know this, but I think I told you guys when we were in Lake County remember that Tuesday, Wednesday when we got canceled, postponed both days?
Yes.
The day we were closer to playing, I think, was Tuesday. And it was the first time I was all alone on the road, setting up the equipment. I had everything set up. I made sure that everything was going to work perfectly. And there was just one button that was, I just needed to flip it one more way. But so everything's right. I can hear the station. I figure they can hear me. I'm talking to the guy. And then I start to post the pregame show. I'm getting like 4 phone calls from different people. And like, they don't know the issue. They're not here. I don't know the issue. I'm panicking. The game's about to start. And they're texting me like, hey, you're going to have to call this game. Like, you're going to have to call in the station and do the game from your iPhone. And it's like, well, that's going to be a heck of a first game, solo on the road, doing it into my phone, with the notes next to you. But fortunately, we got that resolved. I figured it out. You learn that lesson once, and then
Yep.
And the game never got played because I don't know if that was rain or the power outage, but
it's a win-win. That's what it sounds like to me.
Oh yeah, the guy crashing into the transformer was an inside job. I just couldn't do the phone game. Is really what it was. Also,
that's funny.
I tell you, this is the first time you ever seen me with glasses. I should have kept a running tally on over/under on how many times I touched these glasses. Found out after the season ended that I wasn't really seeing well. So if I ever had
as long as they look good. That's what I say about my. As long as they look good, then you're fine. Don't matter. It's all good.
Oh, now I can go back and anytime like I had the wrong pitch someone was throwing, it's like I couldn't see.
Yeah, there you go.
That's Jensen. I've been saying it was Bain for 2 innings. I mean, it's just, I have a built-in excuse for that. Is there anything I haven't touched on you want to talk about? Anything fun or exciting you've been up to in the off season? I know you've been spending a lot of family time.
Yeah, I prioritize the training. I really don't do much, man. I'm really busy for not doing much, but prioritize the family time, prioritize the training, and just get after it, man. Just try to enjoy every day and win every day.
You got to take time to relax, especially with the rigors of a minor league baseball schedule and, that stuff coming up. It's snowy and icy outside, but a few months from now, we'll be back. We'll be on the field. You'll be on the field. I'll be in the booth.
It'll be snowy and icy in South Bend.
I'm hoping I can get Chris or Brian to join me in the booth this year.
You got to get Chris up there because he's got the voice to do it. No disrespect to Brian because he would be a great feature, but Chris has got the voice to do this long term. If he wanted to, he definitely could. And
so I reached out to both of them just to see if there's anything they wanted me to ask you. And Chris said, I'm hoping to make my way to South Bend. And I was like, hey, hop on the booth for half an inning. Let's chat. And he's like, oh, well, now I'm going to be there every game. So we'll see what his schedule's like. We'll see if he's there.
That's awesome.
But a few months away, hey, beginning of April, South Bend opening the season with Quad Cities. We got the final champion of the Midwest League versus the first champion of the High A Central. It's going to be a fun way to start the year.
It's coming up on us quick.
Yeah. Hey, thank you so much for joining me today, Max. Absolute pleasure as always. Good luck. Continue to train for the season, and good luck, in 2022. This is one of those funny things where it's like I want to say, I hope to see you soon, but I'm probably not going to be at spring training. And I mean, you probably don't hope to see me. I probably don't hope to see you. I'm hoping you're in Tennessee. So
it'll be a nice. I don't want to hurt your ego, but it'd be a nice consolation prize if I do. If I do get to see you, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, man. Thank you for having us on, or thank you for having me on. Sorry. It's been a really good time, and it's always fun chatting with you, man. It felt like just like one of our conversations in season. So
absolutely. And if people don't know, one of the best things about you is you're just so sociable, and every single person who comes to conduct any interview or any media person who comes to Four Winds Field, whether it's the Cespedes Barbecue guys, whether it's literally anybody. I just forgot what's his name from Marquee Sports Network.
Oh, Lance.
Lance Brazowski. They're always like, hey, does Bain have a minute or two? It's like, does Bain have – if he's not pitching, he's got a minute for you. And then I'm just checking in, doing my stuff, making sure the media is all happy. And it's like, dude, Lance is still there. It's been an hour. My boss will be like, oh, he put his phone away 30 minutes ago. They're just chatting. So it's always – we always love that you're just so open and transparent with everything that you do, but especially with the media because they always leave and love it. I think the Cespedes Barbecue guys were planning to talk to a lot of people, and they were like, oh, we're totally fine just talking to Bain for like an hour.
That's a great compliment, and I appreciate that. I really enjoyed my time with, your guys' media team, and obviously Lance coming in and the Cespedes Barbecue guys. Like, those guys were all amazing to me. So I'm just grateful for any opportunity I get to meet people and just, like you said, be sociable with them.
Well, thanks so much. We'll talk to you again soon.
Appreciate it.
We welcome you back on the Cubbie Corner after the great interview with our very own Max Thoma, as well as Max Bain, and plenty coming up this offseason on the Cubbie Corner as we prepare for opening day come April here at Four Winds Field. Max, I'm looking forward to talking guys like Andy Weber, Levi Jordan, and Chase Strumpf really soon, and looking forward to mixing in, a lot of 2021 guys as well.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to hopefully getting a chance to talk to a couple more big-name pitchers from last year. Jordan Wicks, the Cubs' first-round pick that joined South Bend the last few weeks of the season. Hoping to get to talk to DJ Hers as well, the Cubs' minor league pitcher of the year. And, just really excited. And I got to say, one of the main takeaways from that Bain interview is just, his apartment was better lit than mine. He had better equipment than me. It's fun to talk to a guy who's got the microphone, he's got the pop filter, he's got the arm. It's just, he's a really great guy to talk to.
Guys made to succeed on the mound as well in the media world. This is the Cubbie Corner. I'm Brendan King. That's Max Thoma. We're looking forward to a great offseason here in 2022. And then, of course, South Bend Cubs baseball back in the 5-7-4. We'll catch you next time.